change that. So it tells a miracle of what happened to Golda Meir when she arrived. And if you allow me to take an extra few minutes, we'll just go through this powerful piece. And I'm going to read from the book. 2 days later, at the underlined area in the first page, trembling on a podium in Chicago, Golda Meir found herself facing a distinguished gathering of the members of the family. Before, in one Chicago hotel room, were the most financial leaders of the American Jewish community, the very men whose aid she had been sent to seek. Her friends in New York had urged her to avoid this confrontation. The council leadership was not Zionist. Its members were already under great pressure for funds that their own American institutions, hospitals, synagogues, cultural centers, they are weary, as Kaplan had discovered, for appeals abroad for money. Now Golda Meir heard the Toastmaster announce her name, and at sight of her simple, austere figure, moved the speaker's stand. Someone in the crowd murmured, "She looks like the woman of the Bible." And without a text, the messenger from Jerusalem began to speak. And we'll go to the next top of the page. "Must believe me," she said, "when I tell you they have not come to the United States solely to prevent 700,000 Jews from being wiped off the face of the earth. During the last 6 years, the Jewish people have lost 6 million of their kind. And it would be presumptuous indeed of us to remind the Jews of the world that 700,000 Jews are in danger. That's not the question. If, however, these 700,000 Jews survive, then the Jews of the world will survive with them, and the freedom will be forever assured. But if they do not," she said, "there is little doubt that for centuries there will be no Jewish people, there will be no Jewish nation, and all their hopes will be smashed. In a few months," she told her audience, "the Jewish state will exist in Palestine. We shall fight for its birth. That is natural. We shall pay for it with our blood. That is normal. The best among us will fall. That is certain. But what is equally certain is that our morale will not waver, no matter how numerous our invaders may be." Yet, she warned, those invaders who come with cannon and armor. Against the weapons, sooner or later our courage will have no meaning, for it will cease to exist, she said. We'll go back to the last line of the page. "The woman who had arrived in the United States one bitter January night with $10 in her pocketbook will leave with 50 million. 10 times the sum Eliezer Kaplan had mentioned, twice the figure set by David Ben-Gurion, 3 times the entire oil revenue of Saudi Arabia for 1947. Waiting for her airplane at Lydia Airport was David Ben-Gurion, the man who wanted to go in her place. No one appreciated better than he the magnitude of her accomplishment in the United States, or its importance to Zionist cause. The day when history is written," he solemnly told her, "it will be recorded that thanks to a Jewish woman, the Jewish state was born." And she spent months traveling the country, and she came to get a few $1,000s and left with 50 million.
Was there any one family that really bore the burden?
So you have to read the book.
The answer is Daniel didn't read the book.
No, she travels from city to city.
Okay.
And
We think about the present value of like
Right.
$50
$50
million.
million.
Well, for 50 million, you
Future value,
can't even
that's
collect 1,000 here, 1,000 there. You have to get a chunk from someone.
But she
Right.
went from each
There's gotta be
city,
a chunk.
and they organized these gatherings, where the Jewish leaders would get around, and they would, they would say, if you speak to this family, speak to that family. Synagogue would give up their discretionary funds, and she just collected money until she had an amazing collection and took her back to Israel. And then the story will continue next week. Raise enough money to buy weapons to fight off his armies, and that's one of the first miracles in 1947 that went to the creation of the state. It's often said by some that the answer in this world to the tragedy of the Holocaust was the creation of the state. I wouldn't be so bold as to say that. I think it's a very challenging piece to say, but we certainly know that it would have been a different task, a journey to get to the creation of the state of Israel had it not been for the desire and the strength and the resilience of the Jews coming off the Holocaust. Tonight's class, I'm sure difficult for many, certainly for us, but it's an important piece in the requirement that each of us have to never forget the 6 million who were murdered, to remember their strength, their resilience, and to take our day-to-day lives with a little piece of that in us. When we find our challenge in our Judaism and in our day-to-day working lives, how we face our challenges as we grow as Jewish people, as observant Jewish people, that we can hopefully gain some strength from some of these stories that we came to tonight. Any questions?
You ever read a book called The Pledge? Have you read it? I'm reading it. It's about
to raise money, but they were trying to get the technology, they needed to manufacture their own weapons. And how this Russian guy, they just sent people over here looking for contacts and connections to get the plans, blueprints. It was, they were buying, after the war, they were buying extra, United States, the government was selling all kinds of stuff to anybody who wanted it. And to purchase some of it, to get the blueprints for it, to ship it over there. You couldn't just ship it, wherever you wanted it, and paying off the guys at the dock, mislabeling it. They took these huge pieces of equipment and, broke them down part by part, and then labeled them, and then shipped them in different boxes, and then reassembled them over there. It's, when you talk about miracles, the fact that they pulled this thing off is unbelievable. They have this box full of dynamite, and it actually falls like off the crane on the dock. And just like a whole bunch of interesting stories.
Little pieces of miracles that make up the story. Yeah.
After learning about Pesach, and how God freed the Jews from Egypt, it seems so difficult to understand this situation and how 6 million people died and how nothing, I don't want to say nothing happened, but I don't know, it's just difficult for me to understand that.
From which perspective? The fact that the world's response to it, or the fact that why God would let this happen?
Why God would let it happen, and why he did all these things to help free the Jews from Egypt, but in this situation, nothing happened from it.
Did the opposite. Well, not did the opposite.
Well, there's a book.
Occurred.
Right.
There's a book by Rabbi David Wolpe, and he spoke at Hunter College recently. But his book is Why Faith Matters, and it's an interesting perspective. And according to his book, and what I've read, he would say that when God created life, the world, he gave man this great blessing of free thought, free will. And free will can be good and free will can be bad. And so if there's even bad that's going to occur, God would not intercede to stop the bad. So the explanation, he would say, is that that's the evil created by man against man, and only if you think that life is solely what's here on earth, then I guess that's what you would expect of God. But God's not going to intercede every time there's an evil act.
There are books written on faith in the Holocaust, and the big question of where was God, and
he's so funny. He's smiling like crazy.
Right. No,
not an easy question.
It's not. No. It's and I wouldn't listen. My 4 grandparents are all survivors, so it's amazing, and their entire families were killed. I mean, like one distant surviving cousin kind of thing. Like their whole entire families, whole communities.
To end on a
but in the Haggadah we actually say b'chol dor v'dor omdim aleinu l'chalotenu, that in every generation there's going to be someone who's going to rise up against us to want to destroy us, and we see that in every generation. It's been someone, again, whether we go back to the Greeks, the Romans, whether you go to what's going on in the Middle East now, or whether it's the Germans, the Polish, the Russians, like in every generation, that there's going to be some form of uprise against the Jewish people, and then the idea is that then that verse ends off HaKadosh Baruch Hu Matzilenu Miyadam, that God's going to be there, holding our hand through that process. It doesn't explain the process. It doesn't explain why what happened. Again, there are many people much smarter than me that have that have written volumes on this. There's actually an amazing book called Faith After the Holocaust, but there's I don't think there's an answer. But I think the fact, and going back even to what we read tonight, asking the questions is huge, and asking the questions is so important. And when questioning, how we believe, coming from a situation like this, is all important questions. And the answers are somewhere. I don't have them, but the answers are somewhere. But definitely worth talking about and addressing.
I'm happy to send tomorrow a few articles that address this question. But just to end on a positive note, Rachel's grandmother should live and be healthy until 120. Lives in Baltimore. and she survived the horrors of Auschwitz for 4 years.
She's 89 years old.
She's 89. She's the most independent woman that you'll ever meet. Still drives and manages her properties, and I don't know what she does.
No one knows what she does.
She had 4 daughters. She had 4 daughters. Has 4 daughters. Of which Rachel's mother is the youngest, and for the 4 years that she spent in Auschwitz, at the age of 89, she, thank God, has
64 great-grandchildren.
Oh my gosh.
He was number 62.
And every time a great-grandchild is born, she stands on a chair. She looks to God and she says, if Hitler thinks he won, he can come knock on my door.
Right. So it's like, yeah, it's amazing. So she's like, yeah, so she's...
Wait, how old is she now?
89.
89.
89. And, you know, the reason there are so many great-grandchildren is because most of them are in Lakewood, which is a place in South Jersey that has a big yeshiva and highly populated with lots of children. So that's how we grew so exponentially from 4 children.
It's great to see everybody back here. We're back next Tuesday, focusing on the miracle of Israel
Is that funny?
and some
It's hilarious.
reasons why maybe we should live our lives in Israel, some religious Zionism, and then we'll continue moving on with that curriculum. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Golden rings rolled at that